Hey everyone, Dead by Daylight has a rich history when it comes to memes. Today I want to dive into that history, exploring how memes have appeared and evolved over the years, whether these be meme names, phrases, builds, or whatever else. Let's get into it. When Dead by Daylight was released in June of 2016, it did so to a fresh canvas of possibilities for memes to be had. One of the very first memes surrounded new players joining the game. These players would often pick Dwight, the very first character in the Survivor lineup, leading to default Dwights often being seen as noobs, and instead being referred to as Dweet. This is also largely where the origin of locker Dwights come from as well, as scared new players playing as default Dwight would often hide in lockers, leading to tons of killers finding them there. On the killer side, one of the earliest things that grew into somewhat of a legendary meme happened as a result of a bug. In the early days of the game, there were quite a few issues with collision and various interactions. Due to the game being so fresh, it was quite buggy, but this also made it very exciting in many ways. One of the funniest could occur as Billy when chainsaw sprinting toward a corner, or certain walls, causing you to be propelled into the air. Sometimes it threw you directly upward, and other times you could actually sort of glide across the map. This was dubbed Space and Sky Billy respectively. It's a bug that has recurred over the years in various patches of the game, with each being removed in turn. It's always exciting when it comes back though. One of the most renowned memes or community jokes that begun very early into the game's lifecycle was with the very first chapter, The Last Breath, bringing the first new characters to join the Killer and Survivor rosters, Nurse and Nia. Nia was the focus of this meme though, and it all came down to her appearance. There was a distinct lack of texture on her face, and so the community rather crudely called her ugly. This led to the theory, I guess, that this new survivor Nia was not actually a human, but instead the entity, the mysterious spider god in the sky who rules over the trials, and so Nia is the entity was born, a running community joke that still persists today. Following the release of The Last Breath came the very first licensed chapter, Halloween, in 2016. A huge moment for the game, but also a huge moment for the meme community. Myers was a big deal, and a lot of memes developed from him. One of the earliest ones was largely just an image that represented a bug at the time where killers were able to drop their powers, and have others pick them up. The most famous case being Billy dropping his chainsaw and Myers picking it up, leading to Chainsaw Myers. This bug interestingly led to an entire revamp for how powers functioned in-game, moving them away from being equipable items, similar to survivor items, and instead making them fixed. Regardless, it resulted in some funny images, the most famous case being Myers with a chainsaw. The other thing popularized as the game began to grow was meme builds. Now that many players felt comfortable with playing the game, they began to craft builds that focused on messing around. One of the earliest meme builds was dubbed Burger King Myers. This build took the new killer Myers and had him run a number of restrictions to make him as slow and as weak as possible. You'd run the iridescent add-on Judith's Tombstone, which caused a permanent 9% reduction in movement, and paired it up with the add-on Vanity Mirror, which further reduced your movement by 7%, causing a horrendously slow Myers. You also weren't allowed to use your stalking power as part of this, meaning you remained in Tier 1, which at the time was 4.4 meters per second, slower than base speed. This was one of the most popular meme builds, which was sadly phased out of the game through a series of patches, but it will always hold a place in the community's heart, I'm sure. This isn't where the Myers memes end though, with there being another bug that caused a popular meme. This one being that sometimes Myers would appear without his shirt when he was in the lobby, with many being very taken aback by his form. This led to the mass demand for Shirtless Myers, basically just Myers without a shirt as a cosmetic. Back then the store didn't exist though, so popular outcry for this happened more so around when it did, but also for basically every subsequent year up until the current day. People really want that shirt gone, so you gotta do it, behavior. Entering 2017, it was a big year for Dead by Daylight, with it gaining a lot more popularity but also onboarding 2 huge new licenses during the year, as well as bolstering its original content. Most of the memes of the year though came from the license stuff. It began with the second ever killer license to come to the game, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in September of 2017. In this chapter we got the sole release of Bubba, a character who quickly gained a reputation for camping, particularly in the basement. Bubbas were widely known as not just campers, but as one of the most toxic killers in general. The specific meme part, I would argue though, came with Bubba's camping of the basement, gaining the name Basement Bubba. A Basement Bubba being a killer that would hide in the basement beside the chest at the start of the match with the perk Insidious, which made you entirely undetectable. When a survivor came down to open the basement chest, you'd jump scare them and continue to camp the basement. As there was no anti-camp measures back then, and the basement entrance was narrower too, it was far harder to escape. And it also made Basement Bubba rather popular, but also genuinely decently strong in some cases. It doesn't happen often nowadays due to the changing climate of the game, but it's still regarded as a well-loved meme nonetheless. The other killer that was heavily memed on this year was Freddy, who released with his chapter A Nightmare on Elm Street just a month later in October 2017. Both Bubba and Freddy were mild disasters. Bubba seemed half finished and Freddy was so weak it was almost a meme in itself, and led to him being referred to as Sharp Hand Joe instead of Freddy Krueger, a joke that he was a knockoff and not the real thing. This persisted for quite some time until his later rework in 2019. The memes didn't end with Freddy though, one of the biggest of this year being Goblin Quentin, a name given to Quentin due to his poorly textured and distorted face. Not too dissimilar from Nier as the entity, I guess. Only this time they were just calling him a goblin. Whenever someone took a screenshot of him, it just always seemed to look awful. This grew to the extent of the Quentin actor, Kyle Gallner, actually speaking about it and asking if there was anything to be done. Eventually Quentin did end up getting a facial and visual rework in 2021. This was also the year we got the famous Matthew Cote quote during an interview in late 2017, with him saying regarding Dead by Daylight as a game,
"I think we've done a pretty good job so far."
A quote which has been relentlessly used over the years to comment on whenever the state of the game is bad, using it to highlight the exact opposite. It's also been re-said by Matthew over the years on various occasions, such as anniversaries, with him standing by it. Good on him, I say. 2018 had its fair share of popular memes too, with the first originating with the very first chapter of the year, Saw, releasing in January of 2018. With this chapter we got the Pig, a character who was not initially memed on her release, with her being fairly weak, but receiving a number of buffs actually. However, shortly after her release, and buffs, she received a string of nerfs, each patch bringing something new to nerf her down, whether this be her core abilities or her add-ons. A character that was already pretty weak. This created the meme of Nerf Pig, a meme which represented the unfair nerfing of things to an almost ridiculous extent. Why on earth of all things was Pig getting nerfed, with all the broken things in the game? For years to come, if Pig ever received a nerf, it was picked up on quickly, and the joke broadened out to being a meme about the poor focus of the game's balance. Oh, DS is too strong, let's nerf Pig. That sort of thing. In February of 2018, we got one of the most legendary dev quotes of DBD history. During one of the dev's weekly update streams, Matthew Cote and Not Queen, community manager at the time, were answering questions surrounding the state of the game. This was when Matthew answered a question regarding killer players being frustrated with how the game currently was, to which he answered in essence, go play something else.
"I used to love playing as a killer, win or lose it was fun, but currently no matter what it's just filled with stress and anger. Killers aren't feared anymore. Do you have any plans or ideas how you would like to improve the killer experience?" Well, I would say maybe try Survivor for a bit. No, but it's true. I mean, change it up. Maybe you're just tired, you know, or play something else for a week. Try Civilization or something, just for a refreshing change. Balance is, I shouldn't be saying that. Should I be saying that? It's a good game, just play that. No, Bjorn is telling me I shouldn't be saying that. Okay.
This was a big deal at the time, and whilst I honestly fully agree with him, it was definitely delivered a bit bluntly maybe, and rubbed lots of people the wrong way. It now forever has lived on as this shocking but also legendary moment within the community. Boop the Snoot, I would argue, was the other big meme of this year, and is also to do with Pig, but I would say is a more common meme surrounding taming the killers, with Pig being one of the first killers able to technically speak with her roar. She could prompt survivors to point toward her snoot as a friendly gesture, a sort of language between both sides, and a funny little moment where a truce is made. This has developed over the years in many ways, with all of the new ways to interact. but back then this was much more of a rarity to have a connection this close, of crouching down to the survivor level and receiving a boop, meaning the meme has lived on for quite some time. Be polite and boop the snoot. 2019 was an important transitional year for the game, with it being hugely modernized with the addition of Stranger Things and the Tomes and Rift. In February of 2019, one of the most renowned and legendary games of Dead by Daylight was played, by the game's biggest creator of the time, Noob3. During this game, Noob was playing against a pig live on stream. The whole of his team was dead, aside one player. Noob took on the responsibility of looping this pig, doing so for over 20 minutes, whilst upholding an escape streak of 21 matches. Eventually he got caught by the pig though and died, with the teammate getting the hatch. In the endgame chat, when asking his teammate what they were doing for the entire 20 minutes, they simply replied, "Getting generators," and "you?" This represented for many what it felt like to play in solo queue, to absolutely play your heart out and doing everything you can only to get the blame for the team losing. This phrase being narrowed down into simply "doing gens you," a phrase that has become a meme throughout the community to this day, largely representing awful solo queue teammates. The funniest part about this too is that even the killer chasing Noob agreed with him that they could have just done the gens. With the release of Stranger Things in November of 2019, we got the Demogorgon, an important moment for DBD as this was the first non-human killer. This led to a very simple meme but a very sweet one as well, which is the calling of Demo as Demo Dog, a meme which largely came about due to Demo's funny animations in some cases, like when it nods, and more widely just because of it seeming innocent and dog-like. The community has a penchant for making monstrous beings into cute domesticated animals, and this was the start of that with Demo Dog. Later this month, we also got the legendary reverse chainsaw into Quentin hiding in a corner meme from Arts. This simply being a clip of Arts doing exactly what it sounds like. He did so after a viewer asked why Billy was so good, with him going on to perform this after the rest of the Survivor team had suddenly and inexplicably given up.
The next step is something that only a really advanced Billy could pull off, where it's going to be the reverse chainsaw into Quentin hiding in a corner. Now, again, not everybody's going to be able to pull that kind of play.
The whole thing just seemed completely absurd and incredibly funny, with him claiming it as an advanced strategy too after saying he's able to predict everything the survivors are doing. 2020 was a rough year for DBD, but also the wider world. Due to changes in working conditions, it caused many issues with the chapters of that year, but maybe not the ones you might think. The huge meme and controversy of 2020 was Assgate. This occurred with the release of the Silent Hill chapter in June. With this chapter we received Pyramid Head, a killer which was noted upon launch to have a particularly large rear. However, it was also quickly noticed that one day this rear had shrunk. It got smaller, but not even smaller really, but completely flat. The community was devastated, complaining to the devs to the point of there being actual genuine articles written about this, dubbing it Assgate, with it being further revealed that they had in fact completely flattened his behind. The devs later responded to this though, claiming they hadn't done anything, and the particular screenshot in question was actually just a bug with that cosmetic. To this day, it's still hotly debated whether or not this was true. One of the huge positives of this year was another Otz meme though, this one occurring after Otz was playing Survivor and his teammate was not doing gens but instead cleansing doll totems. This led to a heated endgame chat where the Survivor defended their actions, with Otz getting increasingly angry. This is almost the Doing Gens You sequel, but this time ended with Otz winding up his fist and punching his webcam, this becoming the famous Otzdava webcam punch meme, being used as a clip for general annoyance with in-game events and solo queue teammates especially. 2021 was an improvement over 2020 and came with great memes as well. In April 2021, we received somewhat of a meme from the official DBD mobile account, showing off a build they recommended to escape killers. This comprised Iron Will, Urban Evasion, then Sprint Burst and Lithe, a double up of exhaustion perks, but also funny due to Lithe never being activatable due to Sprint Burst being in this build. The best build to run as a survivor, especially due to it coming from an official source. In June of 2021, we got the absolutely huge Resident Evil chapter. Of all the things to come from this chapter though, the funniest was for sure Nemesis, specifically a playstyle many Nemesis players seem to adopt very quickly, and one that does fit quite lore accurately into Nemesis as a character: tunneling. More precisely, running back to the hook as soon as the unhook sound was heard. This is where we got the tunneling Nemesis meme, or GIF, where you see the funny Nemesis run animation coming towards you as soon as you get off hook. Tunneling in this way was already sort of a meme, but this just put a face to it. In September 2021, Hellraiser was released to the game, a licensed chapter that featured just Pinhead. What made this chapter so exciting though was that for the first time ever, the killer actually talked in the trials, a legendary development. With this, of course, came the meme of "I came." A meme that is, as crude as it sounds, simply making a joke out of the fact that Pinhead says "I came" when he teleports to you. This originating from the original Hellraiser, where Pinhead says "You summoned us, we came," after being summoned by Kirsty. Only now he says "I came" due to being alone in the realm. "I came" spread hard and fast across the internet, but came to a crashing halt when it was announced that for the live launch of the chapter there would be no more coming. The voice lines got removed. Outrage was at an all-time high until eventually it was announced that they were returning, this time also being voiced by the original actor Doug Bradley. In late 2021 we also got the famous cosmetic glitch that allowed you to break link sets, usually inseparable. This meant for Jeryl, a character who recently got the skin of James Sunderland, you were able to separate the cosmetic to actually have a combination of both Jeryl and James on the same skin, this character being named Jeryl by the community. 2022 was a real return to form for DBD after some rough years prior, with horror coming back with Dredge and the huge second Resident Evil chapter. Speaking of, this was the biggest meme of the year, Wesker, the killer that came with Project W. Similar to Pinhead of the year prior, Wesker had voice lines too, and he had a bunch of funny ones. Pretty much everything he said was a little goofy, as is the character, but the one that was popularized the most was 7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you. And also the whole meme of "It's Weskin time," which was just more of a goofy phrase relating to Wesker and playing him. Wesker was wildly popular, to the point of almost absurdity, I'd argue, with his pick rate through the roof and the community mood being greatly lifted by his silliness. He was also another character heavily campaigned to get a shirtless cosmetic. Another meme that became more and more popular over the years with the rise of mass cosmetic releases was the phrase "one for them, one for Feng," a quote referring to the fact that it always seemed that whenever someone got a cosmetic, Feng had to get one too, a joke about her popularity and complete imbalance of cosmetics, with the funniest examples being with characters like Jill and her Stars outfit, where Feng also got a cosplay version. If they get one, she gets one too, with there being jokes that one day there'd even be a Feng only rift. In December of 2022, a meme arose as a result of a very dedicated clown main named Aranad. Aranad wrote an incredibly comprehensive guide, over 100 pages long at the time, about Clown and the strategies for him. This was quite memed in the community, I think largely for the fact that the Clown around the time was viewed as one of the most simplistic characters, so 100-page clown guide became a bit of a meme, with it gaining more and more popularity after it being covered by Ots too. This, I would argue, does have some humor, but at the same time was a great service to the community, and I think was actually one of the big triggers for many other people deciding to write long, comprehensive guides as well. Meaning, whilst it was a meme to many, it was also a great long-lasting asset in education for the community. 2023 was off to a rough start after the end of 2022 with the Forged in Fog chapter being deemed a bit of a flop, with Knight and his AI guards. It didn't get much better with the first chapter of 2023 being the game's most controversial, or simply hated, ever. This was the Tools of Torment chapter, a chapter many had presumed was going to have a sci-fi, dark futuristic focus due to the trailers we'd seen. However, the community was beyond disappointed with the reveal of the Skull Merchant, a killer that lacked a cohesive visual design, had a clunky and disinteresting drone power, and just didn't appeal very widely. The worst thing that happened though was the power enabled 3-genning to a greater degree than ever before, 3-genning being the strategy of guarding the closest 3 generators together as killer, all game instead of roaming. It was especially bad around this time due to the meta shakeup that occurred in patch 6.1.0, just some months prior, which resulted in a number of gen regression perks being heavily buffed, such as Call of Brine and Overcharge. This all peaked with a single match played where a Prestige 100 Skull Merchant player challenged a comp team, saying they could stall them for an entire hour up until the server closed. This was popularized even more due to highly highly popular creators Otstava and Hens also covering it. The actual meme part of this though, aside the entire thing seeming insane to happen at all, was the phrase chess merchant that came out of it, a phrase used to describe the style of play of holding 3 gens, a joke about its complexity despite the clear lack of. This phrase is now used more as a blanket term for joking about 3genning or similar playstyles. A general meme name around the time was also Chris 3genner, due to Merchant's appearance and her strategy. 3 months on, we got the release of End Transmission for the 7th year anniversary of the game. It marked a key moment as this is sort of when memes surrounding phrases in the intro cinematic began. In this case, during the End Transmission opening cinematic, it would always start with Gabriel saying,
"It wasn't programmed to harm the crew."
This became a bit of a meme, with it getting repeated throughout the community and further leading to future cinematics getting the same treatment. Such future hits as
this holiday season.
How many pages have I written?
There's nothing more powerful than imagination.
And my personal favorite,
Poor misguided wanderers.
The devs like feet was an ongoing meme throughout the years, the meme being that the devs inexplicably seem to release many killers with exposed feet, with many cosmetics also featuring the same. This leading to the theory that someone on the dev team liked feet and kept doing this. This was popularized this year especially though, as during the anniversary there was a dev quote directly addressing this, the quote stating, "No, we don't like feet. If we make more feet cosmetics, it's because you like feet. Supply and demand, the data doesn't lie." A pretty funny response considering, and honestly, yeah, that sounds about right. Especially if it's true that Beach Sable is in fact the best-selling DBD cosmetic ever. Later that year we also got the release of Xenomorph with the Alien chapter. Similar to Demogorgon's treatment as a dog, Xeno was deemed initially very cute by the community and quickly dubbed Xeno Kitty. For some reason the community just loves to give these monsters cutesy names and compare them to domesticated animals. Xeno is cute though, I mean just look at it. 2024 was an interesting year with debatably one of the coolest things to happen to the game that came about due to Unknown, a character released with the All Things Wicked chapter in March. Unknown was a ginormous success to the point of it spanning the entire internet for a brief period, with Unknown popping up in various ways and places. The craziest one though, and one which went super viral, was Unknown in Minecraft, with someone creating a Minecraft build within a cave that resembled the face of Unknown. This was a huge deal for DBD. The other very direct in-game meme thing we got was the My Little Oni event in April of 2024. This event being advertised initially by a trailer that many presumed was a joke due to it being on April Fools. However, upon launching the game, the event was actually there, a mode where you could play as tiny survivors or a ginormous Oni who could step on the survivors to kill them. It was a bizarre but incredibly fun mode that played on the questionable nature of the community and their constant requests for killers to step on them. 2025 continued the memes of the past 9 years and came along with some fresh new ones too. In June 2025 we got the long-awaited Five Nights at Freddy's chapter, and with it a really big surprise, a yellow rabbit skin for Springtrap that came from the films and was voiced by Matthew Lillard himself. Due to Springtrap having the innate ability to jump scare the survivors during the trials, we got the same for this skin, which resulted in the meme of White Man Jumpscare, which is basically just the yellow rabbit Afton screaming at a survivor. It just looks super goofy. The other huge meme we got this year came about during the release of the Walking Dead chapter in July 2025. Upon the launch of this chapter, players noticed an issue with the loading screen. For some inexplicable reason, there was a girder or a steel beam poking down from one of the corners. This beam was quickly dubbed Jim, and was even officially recognized by the developers themselves, both apologizing for the lack of quality control, but also playing into the joke. They provided all players with a free icon featuring Jim to always remember him, as he became a bit of a community celebrity, and hero even. Jim represented a lot wrong with the game and its issues during 2025, but also a silliness and hope within the community to laugh along at the absurdity of it too, which was nice. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Was there any meme I missed? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.